Now that you've created actions for all of the buttons for your questions, it's now time to make um, everything down at the bottom of your screen work, which is really where the nuts and bolts happen. Okay, so for this, we're actually going to start with our text display here and our image view. We're going to add these two items to our code, but rather than an action, we're going to add them in as a outlet because they're rather than doing calculations for us, they're actually going to be giving us displays. So we call those outlets. So the first is let's do our text display. So I'm going to click on it, hold down Control, and I'm actually going to drag this in at the top underneath the scoreboard and keep it an outlet, and we'll name it verdict text, and then connect it. And then we're going to add this image view in underneath our verdict text. And again, keep it an outlet. So I'll name it an image display and connect it. All right, now it's time to code our submit button, or you might have worded it as press for verdict, however you worded it. All right, so I'm going to click on submit. I'm going to hold down the control key, click and drag. This time this is going to go underneath my question 5 action. This needs to be an action because it's going to actually run some calculations. I'm going to call it the submit button and connect. Okay. So now I have to think, what do I want to happen in this app when that submit button is pressed? So when the submit button is pressed, I'm going to use what's called an if-else statement here. So if, and you probably guessed it, we have to check what score the scoreboard is. So if that's scoreboard, and here's where you can kind of decide, you want to be nice or do you want to be lenient. So I have a maximum of 6 points that a user can earn. And so do you decide, do they have to make a perfect score, or are you going to let them miss 1 or 2? I'm going to be a little lenient, so I'm going to say if scoreboard is greater than or equal to, and we're going to say 5. I need to put in a curly bracket. And what do we want to happen? So we want the text to display, something along the lines of "You're not a witch," and then we want this image to display something fun, which we'll talk about the images here in the next video. So right now I'm just going to be concerned about this text display. So first thing I'm going to say, if scoreboard, when the submit button is pressed, if scoreboard is greater than or equal to 5, I'm going to say verdict text dot text. So that's going to be the text within this verdict display here. We're going to set that equal to, and I need to put this in quotation marks because this is going to be written text. So I'm going to say verdict text dot text is equal to "You're not a witch." Carry on. Okay, now I need to give, and you can say whatever message that you want to give them if they're not a witch. Now, after this curly bracket, I need to add another important command, which is else. So else is going to mean any score that's not 5 or greater. In this case, the verdict text dot text, you need to set equal to and come up with a message, foul witch, thou shall be punished. Then we'll come back to this image view here in the next video. But the last thing I need to do is code for my reset button. So below the submit button, I'm going to control drag. And this needs to be an action. And reset button, I'm going to call it. Okay. And so when the reset button is pressed, we want a few things to happen. Number one, the scoreboard. We need to set that equal to 0. We need the verdict text dot text. And rather than saying that equal to 0, because it'll actually display 0 then, we want nothing to be displayed. So I'm going to type in what's called nil. Nil just means nothing. And then I'm going to code one more thing here. We also want our image to actually go back to nothing. So I'm going to do our name our image display. So image display dot image. So that's going to be the image that's in our image display. And I'm going to also set that equal to nil, which means nothing. Alright, so in our final video, I'm going to tell you how you can put a picture into this image view and then add it to your code.